thought I'd do a little bit more of my waking up story. So, I mentioned before in my wife's video, the indoctrination had been weakened because we had our oldest kid, and it's easy to miss meetings when you have a young child, and they're sick, they poop all over themselves, and oh boy, is it not a fun idea to be like, great, we're going to try and clean him up as fast as possible, change him, get in the car, and oh no, he puked on himself. We'll just stay home. I had a job that I worked nights, which made it very hard to not miss Sunday meetings, which I would go to quite a few. So I'd be working 2 nights, get off a shift, sleep for 30 minutes, get ready for the meeting, go home, sleep for 2 hours, and then go back for another shift. It was rough stuff. Very, very hard to do. And then also working nights means I would miss the midweek meeting every other week. So there's a lot of weakening of the indoctrination. And I saw, I've got a lot of time by myself to think at work. And the one night I saw on the front page of Reddit a story about the Australian Royal Commission. And I clicked on it and I was like, oh no, that's not good. And so I followed the link, read the story, then I got curious. I knew there was an XJW subreddit, and I was like, I wonder what the apostates are saying, or if they're saying anything angry. What's the spin they're putting on it? So, went on there and kind of blew my mind. First, everyone was way nicer than I expected. Second, learned a bunch of stuff I had no idea about. Started reading JW Facts, and I was like, that was it. By the end of the shift, I was like, oh no, this isn't right. This isn't right. 90% sure it's not right. I'll do some more research, and maybe I'll find some argument to rationalize all of the stuff I've read. I did not, because it's nonsense. Because it's all nonsense. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So from that point, I did the classic thing that any person waking up usually does. The average. I read Crisis of Conscience, and that blew away any thought that there's some sort of magic powers going on behind the scenes. It's obviously just a bunch of men bumbling around, not knowing what they're doing. Read Crisis of Conscience. I read Gentile Times Reconsidered as a hard read, but I read the summaries. I skimmed the proof. The proof was was numerous and well sourced and logical. Read all of JW Facts. I'll put a little reading list in the bottom of some of the stuff that I looked at. A lot of it's normal things that are mentioned by witnesses or ex-witnesses, people who are waking up. So what I did at that point was basically sit on it, because like I mentioned in my wife's video, I was like, I didn't want to spring it on her. So the entire time I am doing research with two goals in mind. I wanted to figure out if there was a perfect argument that I could use to wake up friends or family members. And there isn't. I'll tell you that right now. It's not that I couldn't find it, it's that it doesn't exist. It's not possible. First of all, there's no silver bullet. That's 100% impossible. There's no one thing you can show witnesses that will make them question things. Second of all, even on an individual level, there is a good chance that there's no silver bullet there either. For that person, there might not be any argument that you can show them that will make them question things. It's just not. I've seen this quite a few times of like, what can I say to my family, my friends, to try and wake them up? And the sad thing is there isn't anything. You can try, but there might not be an answer to that question, unfortunately. The other reason why I was doing all that research was because I was like, I am going to have a judicial committee at some point. Oh, that was another thing that woke me up. I listened to several secret judicial committee recordings where someone had, a phone in their pocket. Those were enlightening. Seeing how things happen behind closed doors is like, oh my God, these people are the worst. These are the elders that are supposed to be being guided by Holy Spirit, and this is the things that they are saying to these very fair and legitimate questions. It's just stupid. It's just so stupid and laughable. So my second goal is preparing for my judicial committee, because I want to give it to them. So after I told my wife, this is a warning to anyone out there who might be PMO, physically and mentally out, where you're still trying, you're on the surface, you're pretending to be just a normal witness, and inside you don't believe anymore. Witnesses are very motivated. Maybe partly this was because it was during the pandemic and people are bored, but someone went through my wife's Instagram, looked through all 400 of the accounts she was following, and they found Amber Scora, who was an ex-witness who wrote the book Leaving the Witness. Great book. Her prose is fantastic. If you grew up in the witnesses in like the 90s and 2000s, probably 80s too, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it will, the amount of nostalgia, unpleasant nostalgia it will summon up in you is amazing. She just paints like a perfect picture of what it was to be a witness in those time periods. Great. And her story is very interesting. I recommend it. Anyway, Amber Scora's Instagram does not say, obviously, that she is an ex-witness. It takes a little bit of research. So this person, my relative, who was concerned about, who I love, who is now a religious zealot and a ding-dong, and I really hope that she wakes up, went through all of the contacts and researched all of them to figure out who they were, found that one, reported it to the elders. So here's where it gets interesting, and I have some fun quotes to share. So got a text immediately, like the day of. So this is the path of information. My relative sends it to my father-in-law. My screenshots. Oh, my wife is following apostates. Screenshot. Sent to father-in-law. Father-in-law immediately forwards it on to body of elders. I get a call that night. Like lightning, they are so fast. If you haven't showed up at meetings in 6 months and have been reporting 0 time for a long time, not a peep, just an occasional thing of asking if you turned in your time. Not calls to see if you're okay, not texts, but as soon as the apostasy is rampant, you're gonna get some phone calls, you're gonna get some concern. So the first call was from my friend, who was calling not as an elder, but just as an individual, because there was just the one. And if the elders come calling in a pair, then you know you're in trouble, because they need 2 witnesses. So if there's anything about, we just wanted to see how you're doing, it's brother me and brother blah blah blah. They got 2 guys there, because that way if you say anything incriminating, they have a second witness, and then they can pin you to the wall with that. So my friend talks to me, and we have a long conversation, like a 3-hour conversation. And so I brought up all of the least apostate stuff that I can that are problems with the witnesses. So like I don't bring up Ray Franz, I don't bring up Beth Sarim, I don't bring up pre-1950s teachings, because even though you can find scans of those documents on archive.org and other websites that are legitimate. They're 100% legitimate. Witnesses still might question and say, are you sure that they're real? And also, instead of responding to the information that you're saying, they'll say, but how did you find those things without going on apostate websites? So I was trying to avoid any whiff of apostasy. So I talked to him about 607, how that's impossible, and that invalidates the everything, the core doctrine, 1914, 1919, the governing body being chosen, the witnesses being chosen, this generation that will not pass away, all of those things, gone. The whole central reason that you need to listen to these bunch of goobers over everybody else is because of Jesus doing something that no one saw in 1919. On its face, it's stupid. But when you can disprove the date, then you don't even have to talk about how stupid it is, because it didn't happen. He actually did a bunch of research on that. So we had a back and forth for a few days. He did a bunch of research, said he was staying up late. I believe him, because he sent me an email 1 a.m. the one night. He was up doing research on Watchtower Library. Research. Big asterisk after that word. But he's doing the best research he can as a believing elder. And so he sent back some responses. A lot of them not. None of them were convincing, because here I am. If they were convincing, I wouldn't have left. But, he was doing his best. They weren't emotional manipulation so much as, just the classic witness proof. Who else is using Jehovah's name? Who else is preaching so much? I don't know. The Watchtower Library admits that Jehovah is not God's name. They say that it's wrong, and it's probably Yahweh. And they also say that no one knows what the pronunciation actually is, and we just use it because it's the most commonly understood. They admit it in their own publications that God's name isn't Jehovah. So it doesn't matter who's using the word Jehovah as much. We could just call God Stan, and it would be... it's so dumb. So... we have a decent conversation. I think he'll wake up. I would put bets on it that he will, because I know from other people who are homo, physically out, mentally out, who have talked to him, that he had expressed doubts to them. So, if you're expressing doubts as an elder, aloud to other people, that is a sign that there is, questions deep down in there, and eventually that will come out. Eventually that will crack. I have hopes that he'll wake up. So we talked to him, and next up in the roster is my father-in-law and my dad, because Fowler Mill Road. I got a detour. Next up is my father-in-law and my dad. The road's closed to work, and I gotta go a different way. And they are both elders, and so we talk to them. Now, my father-in-law is... I don't want to be mean, but he is not... he doesn't read books. He openly admits he doesn't read books. He's not a well-informed person. And all of his talks that he gave were solely appeals to emotion. There was no building a logical case. Logical. Again, big asterisk after this when it comes to the witnesses. Logical case. There was no... Jeez, this is stupid. The detour is taking me to a dumb place. I'm going to turn around. There was no building logical series of proofs or steps. It was all, doesn't that make you feel good? He's just very big and expressive, and so people liked his talks because he was not boring. Was it smart or persuasive if you were not taken in by the emotion? Absolutely not. It was just a bunch of incoherent hoopla. But it wasn't boring. So when we talk to them, we both, my wife and I, both cry because I talk about how hard this is. Like, I'm trying to explain to them where I'm like, this is not a choice. I would not choose to do this. Why would I choose to do this? Because I am sad, and I will lose my family and my friends, and now I believe that I will die instead of living forever with pandas. And my kids will die, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't save them from mortality. And that's upsetting. I cried talking about stuff. My wife cried. Didn't seem to get through to them because they kept saying, you made your choice. My wife parroted the stupid thing that Splain said. So they're like, do you even believe in God anymore? Like, no, not really. No, not really. I didn't say not really. I said, no, don't believe in God anymore. Don't believe that the Bible is the Word of God. Here's why. Brief bullet points. And my mother-in-law says, but that's so sad. What can evolution offer you? And my wife looks at her and like, it doesn't offer me anything. It is just a biological theory in the scientific word, not theory in the, here's my educated guess, but like theory when you talk about science, like the theory of gravity or the germ theory or, theory of relativity, it means fact. It means fact in the context of scientific theories. But my mother-in-law, what could evolution offer you? Nothing. That's not its job. Evolution's job is to explain the diversity and divergence of life. That's all that's what it is. It's not a philosophy. It's not to teach you like morality or like happiness. That's not the purpose. It is to explain changes over time and the changes we observe. So that was dumb. That was just like mind-boggling. Like, what are you talking about? They make it sound so transactional too, of like, but surely somebody must have offered you something better. My mom even said that, which we'll get to. I might have to do a two-parter because I'm sure I'm running out of storage. So my father-in-law, he is a ding-dong. He's a ding-dong man. And we talk about 1975. And they're like, oh yeah, we knew about that. And I was like, you knew about that? You knew? You didn't tell us. You didn't tell my wife. Because they're like, you knew. Well, after we talked a bunch and we're really pretty firm on our things and like debunking their weak arguments against stuff, they're like, well, you know what you were getting into. And they're like, but we didn't. We did not know. I did not know about 1975. And they're like, oh yeah, we knew. Like, well, why didn't you say anything? That would have been important to know. If I had known that the religion had predicted the end of the world, I would not have joined it. That's a pretty big sign that they're crazy people when you predict the end of the world and then it doesn't happen. That's what the crazy cults do. So, one of the things he said was deeply irritating and it made me mad. And he said, well, here's the way I look at it. They're the best way of living. All right, well, that requires some defense. So, even if they're wrong, you've lived a good life, and you won't know anyway, because you'll be dead. And I'm like, that's Pascal's wager. And he's like, yeah, I've heard of that. I'm like, bull fucking shit, you've heard of that. You have not. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But Pascal's wager is basically like, it's gambling. It's gambling and saying, if there is no God, then if I act like there's a God, then there's no downside. And if there is a God, I get to go to heaven. Where if I act like there's no God and there is a God, I get punished. So odds are, out of these scenarios, it will pay off for me in the end. Now, the problem with that is when you're a witness, that's not true. And you are an elder, which means you are disfellowshipping people. oh, 17-year-old John was looking at pornography. Oh, gotta disfellowship him. Oh, someone got a blowjob. Oh, gotta disfellowship them. Oh, you're gay. Oh, gotta disfellowship them. You got caught smoking weed. Disfellowship. So, no, you are not living some neutral, positive, happy life where you are, you're living your best life. And either way, whether or not God exists or not, you're leaving the world, better, or just like a neutral, happy monk in a monastery somewhere. You are damaging people's lives. And being a witness sucks. You wouldn't be here if you didn't agree with me. Well, maybe that's not true. There's a couple homies that watch these. Hi. The witnesses are bad for you. I hope that you realize that at some point. But no, even the most recent, the April 2021 broadcast, are you doing enough? Are you giving your best? It was all low-level guilting to make you question whether or not you're doing enough. Are you doing enough? Probably not. Probably not. No one can know, but probably not. You could probably be doing more. Why aren't you doing more? You could be doing more. Constant guilting, constant anxiety, constant fear of the end, constant fear that you're not measuring up, losing friends and family because you have to shun them, or you are shunned if you're disfellowshipped and still believe, and you are choosing to, put yourself in solitary confinement. If you're gay, boy, that's pretty awful. It's pretty awful. If you're a woman, you get treated like a second-class citizen because submission. You're not qualified to do any of these things. You have to have a penis. You have to have a penis to do these things, sister. But you can still pioneer. You can reach out and pioneer. And you can even be an elder's wife. Look at that. You can still be an elder's wife and support him. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks big time. It's awful. Don't get a college degree. Don't save money. Don't plan for the future. Don't get needed medical advice because the end is so soon. Just live hand to mouth and, ignore your health problems because it's so soon. So why worry about it? My father-in-law is wrong. He is wrong. You are not just living a happy-go-lucky life, and in the end, it doesn't really matter. Either you pleased God, or if there is no God, well, you still lived a good life. You didn't live a good life. As an elder, you have responsibility for the harm you have done, and that is ignoring whether or not he has had any cases of child abuse that he has called the service department and not the police over. We ignored the issue of child molesters, which is a big one. That's a big important thing for me, for anybody. It should be. So that's about how that conversation went. I'll have to talk about my parents in another video because I don't have a very good phone and I don't have a lot of storage, and I'm also almost at work. So that will be a follow-up to this one, talking to my parents and talking to the elders in our shepherding calls. But yes, the gist of the long thing with my in-laws was evolution doesn't offer you anything and it's depressing. Just because something's depressing doesn't mean it isn't true. If I get a cancer diagnosis, that's depressing. I choose not to believe it. I don't have cancer because that would make me sad. That's not how that works. That's dumb. Pascal's wager, not a good reason. And then he tried to prove it with the all scripture's inspired of God scripture. I'm like, yeah. And then I wrote on a piece of paper, everything that Jordan says is true. It was like, you see how this works? It's circular reasoning. Doesn't work that way. And then you knew what you were getting into, which we didn't. That's a lie. And then, what was the last thing they said? Oh, I wish that you'd gone to the elders sooner. If only you'd gone to the elders sooner. It was like, you're an elder. You are an elder. Tell me the things you would have said to me sooner now. If they're not convincing now, why would they have been convincing if I had talked to you sooner? That doesn't make any sense. Bad breaks. I need to fix that. I'm at work. So that's the end of that story. It is the end of that story. A little abbreviated, but most of it's there. Next time, I will talk to you about my parents and then our shepherding calls, because those were interesting and enlightening. So if you've watched to the end, I advise you, if you are PMO, physically and mentally out, don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to anybody unless you are 100% certain, 100% certain that they are not a believer, that they have stopped believing, even if they're out having sex and doing drugs and having got tattoos and whatever, unless they say, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in the governing body. Don't talk to them, because they will throw you under the bus. They will turn into a super zealous cultists. You cannot, like, if you don't want to take that risk in getting exposed, do not talk to them. They are driven because they think you're going to die. And they think that if they don't do this, then they are displeasing God and they will die. They are extremely motivated to be little spies. So be careful. Don't say anything if you don't want to get exposed. If you want to talk to somebody, obviously, yes, you should talk to somebody. You shouldn't look back and have regrets that you never said anything. But just realize that they might betray you. Betray is a strong word, but they might turn you in. Just accept that ahead of time and don't take it personally when it happens, if it happens. So that's all I've got. I need to go inside and get to work. I appreciate you watching to the end. That was a really long video. And I feel like I talked really, really fast. Anyway, it is a beautiful day, and I appreciate you watching to the end. It means a lot. And if you liked it, I hope that you'll subscribe. I'm almost at 1,000. That's very exciting. Once I hit 1,000, get some features unlocked. So that would be very helpful. So thank you very much for watching to the end, and I'll see you next time.